Thank you, Laura. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's town hall. My name is Lori Jones. I serve as Chief Executive Officer here at Philabundance. As we are all keenly aware, and we've probably heard all this entire month, we've just passed the 1-year anniversary of understanding what COVID-19 meant and that pandemic really transforming our lives and changing the world as we know it. And for Philabundance, the pandemic and the resulting economic shutdown forced us to quickly adjust our operations to ensure the safety of our staff, volunteers, partners, and clients, and also to ensure we were able to continue to operate. It also meant a need to feed more people. The company economic crisis that came along with the pandemic meant that 60% more people were food insecure, and nearly 40% of those people were accessing the charitable food network for the first time. Now, at the same time that we saw the need rise dramatically, we also experienced major shifts in the food industry affecting how we were sourcing or how we were acquiring food at Philabundance. If you think about it as individuals back a year ago, chances are you found that too, where you found it either harder or more expensive to get basic groceries. But so many of the challenges we experience as individuals, and definitely here at Philabundance, we had to adjust or pivot, the word of last year, to really meet the needs and to be able to continue to operate. And so this conversation today is about solutions, and it's about the way that we really were, along with our partners, able to adjust and continuing to do that to meet the needs that we saw and to meet the challenging environment that we found ourselves in. So it was really one of the things that was great for us was we had partners, many of whom were partners of ours before the pandemic. They were able to adjust the way they were operating and help us adjust the way we were operating. And so you're going to hear today what I hope will be an inspiring discussion about how we work with people to source or acquire or purchase food in different ways, get donated food in different ways, and also to deliver food in creative ways to meet the need. I'm going to turn this over in a minute to one of my colleagues, Milani Cataldi. Milani is our Chief Impact Officer here at Philabundance and has been with the organization for 20 years and has therefore served in a number of roles. Right now, as Chief Impact Officer, she leads our Ending Hunger for Good work. So think about all the work we're doing to really address the root causes of poverty, to keep people from being in the charitable food lines in the first place. So that's what Milani's day job is now, but she is in very many ways the heart and soul of Philabundance, and she has agreed to moderate the panel today. Milani?
Thank you, Lori. And I am thrilled to be here today with our partners to talk about a topic that is unfortunately more important than ever. I consider our partner panelists here to be innovative leaders in this space. And what I mean by that is these are organizations that are not acquiescing, have not acquiesced to the status quo. They realize that it's going to be a minimum of several years before we get to post-COVID, whatever that looks like. And I'm intentionally not saying getting back to normal because frankly, normal wasn't great for many, many of the community members that we serve. And so today what we want to talk about is really what we've learned, what we've had to change in the last year, what we want to hang on to over time, and what we never want to go back to. With that, I'm going to ask each of our panelists to take about 2 minutes to introduce yourselves, your position, and your organization, and then we'll get into the meat of our discussion. And we will start with Kate Bowdler, who is our Director of Food Sourcing here at Philabundance. Kate?
Thanks, Milani, and I am very happy to be here today. As Milani mentioned, I'm Director of Food Sourcing, and I oversee all food in. So the easiest way to describe that is all of our donated food, all of our government commodity programs, and all of our purchased foods. It also means that I am very focused on how can we be creative and find innovative solutions to reduce food waste and encourage more food rescue and food recovery, because we need, as Milani said, solutions for today, but also solutions for 5 years from now. So that's kind of where my head's at.
Thank you, Kate. And next I'm going to ask Jane Malley, who's the Social Impact Manager of Starbucks, one of our great partners, to introduce yourself.
Hello, thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Pleasure to be here. My name is Jane Malley. I'm the Director of Global Social Impact at Starbucks Coffee Company. And I want to say thank you to Kate for this invitation and the opportunity to speak today. I thought it'd be interesting to share our Starbucks mission is to inspire and nurture the human spirit, one person, one cup, and one neighborhood at a time. One of the initiatives I am most proud of to be a part of is our commitment to let no food go wasted, and soon to scale our food share donation program across all 9,100 of our US company operated stores. Is an example of why I am proud to be a partner at Starbucks, and why for-profit companies have a purpose to serve the communities that we operate in, and continue to grow the neighborhoods and invest in our communities. I'll share a little bit more later about the food share donation program. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. That's really inspiring. Next, I'm going to ask Bill Novick, who is with Novick, with the Vice President of Corporate Initiatives. That's a mouthful, it's a long title, with Novick Corporation. And I know that Philabundance and Novick have partnered together for years. Bill?
Absolutely. And thank you. And thanks for having me. I'm Bill Novick of Novick Corp. We are a locally owned business in Philadelphia, and our focus is on children's nutrition. We work with childcare centers and organizations that feed children, so that's near and dear to our heart. And we also partner with many organizations in the nonprofit community, like Philabundance is a big partner in many ways, which we can talk about a little bit later. But I've been with the company for 30 years and so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And last but not least, Mega Koltrashta, it's a beautiful last name, I hope I got that right, who is the Executive Director of Food Connect, who we also have had a growing relationship and partnership with over the last couple of years. Mega?
Thank you, Milani. Hi, everyone. My name is Mega, and I'm the Executive Director here at Food Connect. And COVID has been a really crazy time for us. We're a nonprofit right here, started in Philly, and a lot of what we do is based on bridging the gap between surplus food and hunger. And during the pandemic, there has been a lot of transitioning in terms of figuring out how do we meet people where they are first. It's shed a light on problems that have always kind of existed in the hunger relief space and the ecosystem. So we're really excited to help be a really strong logistics partner and that on-demand solution when there is extra food, and also when there isn't extra food, how do we come up with really great ways to work together with community partners to help those in need. So excited to be here and get to talk more about the work.
Thank you. So as you can see, we have a great variety of partnerships here, kind of doing a little bit of everything, but together in a different way. And so let's start with you, Kate. Can you talk a little bit about the challenges that Philabundance has faced in the last year with food sourcing, and what some of the changes are that we've had to make?
Sure. So thank you for bringing up the screen. I promise we won't get too into the weeds about numbers. That really the goal of this conversation is to be a conversation and talk about the people behind all of the work. But of course, it wouldn't be a Philabundance Town Hall if we didn't give you some context for kind of how crazy it really has been the past year. So the slide you're all looking at right now, it's 2 years. It's that dotted line down the middle is about when the stay-at-home orders occurred. So you can see it looks nice and orderly before that line, and generally it was about 70% of the food we distributed on a monthly and annual basis was food that was donated and things that otherwise would have gone to waste. We did a small portion of government programs and a small portion of purchasing, but really that wasn't a big part of our strategy. Then everything went haywire, as it did for everyone during the beginning of COVID. You'll see an initial spike that happens when we got a lot of donations, as unfortunately a lot of businesses were forced to close down or had to stop operating because they could no longer work in these positions. And then because of all those businesses closing down, there obviously had to be a tail and a drop off of our donations. At the same time, we saw a lot of opportunity with government programs, the Farmers to Families Food Box program, and many others. I won't get into all of the different federal acronyms because that could be a whole session in and of itself. We have also been extremely grateful and thankful about the number of monetary donations that we've been receiving from people on this call, from others, everyone, that has allowed us to really shift and to meet that need. Generally, year over year, our number of donations have stayed about the same. But as you can see from that chart, that doesn't tell you the real story. A lot of changes have happened underneath that. Retail rescue donations have really gone up at some times throughout the year and also stopped in other areas. So we really had to pivot and change and try to figure out how do we respond to that. At the same time, our food industry donations have gone down. Canned goods were really impacted in the beginning of the COVID response, and then now actually we're going more into produce challenges. So that's really been a struggle for us, but I think what has allowed us to respond in the best way is really being nimble about what we take and expanding our guidelines and who we work with. So for a very simple example, now we're able to take a lot more food industry donations, like the number 10 cans that would have been for restaurants. They're about 5 pounds of tomato sauce, but we've figured out different ways to work with our agency network to take a lot more of those donations. And then if I start to think about how things are now and where we're at. So for the past year, we've kind of just been in this, put our heads down, just go, just figure out how to get done. How do we work? How do we move? And it's kind of only been planning month to month. Now we're starting to take our head up a little. We're starting to think forward and say, okay, well, how do we think about the next 6 months, the next 9 months, the next 2 years? Because we know while it's very exciting, a lot of people are getting vaccinated, we're coming back to some sense of normalcy, the impact and the economic impact for the people we serve is going to be a much longer term of response. And so that's kind of where our head's at. I would say our biggest opportunity is that we're now purchasing 3 months out. We can purchase full truckloads of product. So canned goods, produce, everything, and we can store more of that and be able to get better pricing because we can plan that far out. In fact, one more stat for you. Our annual purchasing budget is now our monthly purchasing budget. That is how much we have increased the level of food purchasing that we're doing so that we can really directly impact the communities we serve. That has now allowed us to do consistently buying a rotating list of 20 items for our agency express so that agencies can have access to the things that they need, whether that be oils, whether that be flour, rice, noodles, all of the things that we can be more aware of culturally appropriate foods and keep working towards that goal. I would also say our biggest challenge right now is lack of produce. Our produce donations from our main sources have gone down by 80%. So we've been purchasing a lot of that, and we've also been using a lot more government produce opportunities. But when I think 6 months out, we really want to keep building up those relationships for how can we get more produce? How can we get more retail donations? How do we do more of those opportunities? Because it's all of these small little things that add up to big numbers. So we really do need to keep thinking about where are the opportunities. A lot of it's going to be direct to agencies. So that's going to be working with other partners like those on this call and others to do what we call third-party logistics. So either warehousing for us, using trucks, drivers, getting it direct to agencies, just really changing what it means to think about food banking and looking at it in a different way.
Boy, I just couldn't have set that up any better if I tried. Thank you, Kate. So Jane, Philabundance and other food banks across the country have an amazing partnership with Starbucks. And you started this call talking about your mission within the community. Can you talk a little bit about that and about how Starbucks has had to respond to the changing environment within the last year?
Yeah, sure thing. It might be helpful, and what a great, I think Kate set me up really well. Might be helpful to give a quick overview of how our food share donation model works. It is a little bit different. than traditional models. So our food share program is an innovative model that utilizes our fleet of logistic providers. So the same fleet that goes to our stores to deliver our delicious bistro boxes, our coffee, our milk. They, at the same time they're delivering our goods, they're actually backhauling our prepared donations that all of our baristas have provided nightly. It all gets consolidated back at our warehouse, our CDC, and then we deliver daily to food banks across the country, Philabundance being one of them, obviously. And the goal of unburdening food banks from food rescue, like how about we take that off of the burden for food banks so that they can focus on distribution into the communities. We also, in addition to donating our food, understand the high cost of logistics. I think we all know this. So we have committed to providing capacity grants to Philabundance and other food banks to help offset the cost of distribution to communities. Like, we didn't want to come in, donate the food and say, we're good luck with that. We know it costs so much to take it to the last mile or the last 20 miles. And so where we can do our part with the capacity grants, we want to stay committed to that. In partnership with Philabundance, we're proud to donate a monthly average of 25,000 pounds from 180 stores in the area, with an impact of almost 500,000 pounds of rescued meals since launch. I will say we are so eager to look ahead to the next 10 years on how best to invest in programs that not just feed the line, but shorten the line. So that my hope is that a second grader today that relies on maybe the weekend backpack program does not need to become an adult in line at a food bank distribution. How do we stop that cycle? You asked a little bit about how do we react and pivot. I think that's the word of the year. When COVID hit our country. So on March 15th, probably a date many at Starbucks will never forget, we made a decision to close most of our stores in response to COVID-19. I just, you can imagine what went into that big decision. It was the right one. What quickly followed was, what are we going to do with all of this inventory of ready to eat food that had already been prepared, sitting at our kitchens, bound for stores? And what about the food and the milk that was already sitting at our stores? So what came was a phone call at 10:30 that night with that evening with a Tiger team of logistics experts. We made a decision on that call to repurpose all of our delivery drivers across the country to basically go rescue all the food from our stores, take it out of the fridge, take it out of the freezer, and all of our milk. And we diverted all of the food across all of our stores to Food Share Feeding America food banks across the country so that no milk and food was wasted in our stores or in our kitchens. What makes me excited is we didn't stop there. We also had committed to our logistic providers to continue compensation even though our stores had been closed. So instead of having our delivery drivers running routes to our stores like they regularly would, we asked where possible in certain parts of the country, our food banks, hey, can you guys use some help with logistics? We have this fleet that is basically on hold right now. Can they help? And what a joy to see our delivery drivers across the country serving with such a high purpose. And I think that was a huge unlock because in that period of time of weeks or whatnot, they understood that they were almost like the disruptor of the bottleneck. They finally understood that logistics was such a bottleneck of food rescue. And I hope that was just a catalyst of so many more connections with food banks across the country. So this was an example of our partnership going beyond funding, beyond volunteering, beyond food rescue. This was leveraging our expertise, our network and resources in a different way to solve both small and big problems for Philabundance and other food banks.
That's amazing. That is the type of thing I was talking about when I said the folks on this call are innovative and not interested in the status quo, but really figuring out what works and not being afraid of change. Another thing that you mentioned, really, which again was perfectly timed, was that every type of entity can focus on what they do best, and that you guys realize how expensive and how hard it is in that end mile logistics. And that's something that Philabundance doesn't do, right? We've got big trucks and we do large amounts of food. And so that end mile sometimes is definitely like delivering to somebody's household. That's not something Philabundance is going to do. And so that's where the partnership with Food Connect has been amazing. So Mega, I'm hoping you can tell us a little bit about Food Connect and our growing partnership with you. And then also any changes that Food Connect has been through in the last year, how you've had to, oh, I hate the word pivot. We're all getting tired of it, but how you've had to pivot.
Sure, sure. Yeah, no, thank you, Jane, for that amazing kind of overview of the program. And I think it really is a testament to how organizations have had to step up in new and different ways. And I think one of the biggest things for us was continuing to meet people where they are in that moment. So a lot of meal sites were disrupted during the pandemic. People didn't feel safe going to a meal site sometimes or waiting there in line. And I know really early on, there was also a lot of kind of confusion around, well, how many people can wait there at the meal site? How are we going to get food? So this whole just accessing resources physically was becoming a big challenge in the region. So I think for us, we very quickly wanted to make sure that the on-demand kind of nature of our work, where we would have extra food that's donated from restaurants, grocery stores, from any number of partners, being able to get that over to shelters, agencies, now involved us being able to respond not just to this extra food request, but also just basic distribution requests from getting existing donated resources or purchased resources over to point B. So that was becoming a big challenge at the time. And also, again, from that site distribution to actually the person's home, because again, people didn't feel safe coming to sites. And then on top of all of this, you layer in lack of transportation for people, lack of childcare. So there were just additional barriers to continuing to get these resources. So for me personally, it's always one of the reasons why what motivates me to do this work is because there's so much abundance in our society. And that's the anomaly of it all, is that we don't live in a world that has a lack of resources. It involves, amazing people like on this call working together to drive home new ways of solving problems. So for us, we decided to roll out using the existing kind of systems and network that we had in place, mobilizing hundreds, thousands of drivers between different driver pools, volunteers, on-call drivers, third-party vendors, additional partners, and really optimizing that to meet site distribution requests and also home delivery requests. So it was incredible to see, because it was almost a very natural fit for what was happening at the time and what is going to continue to happen with people just being able to access resources that we already have in our society. And we just need to kind of think about those solutions with a more focused lens. And so I think one of the big things about COVID is that it's forcing people to look at our society in a new way, trying to solve old problems. So I think a lot of the work that we're doing now, we're so excited when there are extra donations, or when Philabundance does have distribution requests, we're able to help and service those in the evenings and the weekends, ad hoc or scheduled. But also when there are less donations, I'm really excited to work with Milani on this one with the meals program with HPP and other partners to roll out home delivery for folks. So there's also an incredible component of really meeting people where they are, so that they can break the cycle of lack of resources or food access and really kind of get on their feet. So it's just one less thing people have to worry about during this time. So just really happy to be able to do that. We're helping distribute roughly 30,000 pounds of food a month, and excited to continue to do that. So yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it, how when entities come together to start a great partnership, as you see the change in need or additional need, entities are able to expand partnerships and kind of be more agile together. Like with the Health Partners Plans program, where they approached us and said, we'd really like to get some meals out to our members who are food insecure, who are hungry. And we were able to partner with Food Connect and get nutritious meals delivered directly to the doorstep of people that need them, which is amazing. So Bill, speaking of logistics and partnering and everybody doing what they're best at, can you talk a little bit about the Novik partnership with Philabundance on logistics and on some of the government food programs?
Absolutely. I was thinking about all the ways that organizations connect, and there's a myriad ways. But to answer your question more specifically, I'd say that logistics support we've been able to provide in a few ways. One, as Philabundance is able to glean donations from different organizations, whether it's fresh produce or other refrigerated items. There are times when you don't have the capacity to hold all the donations. So we've been able to, numerous occasions, hold those products for you. Usually it involves a 3 p.m. call on a Friday. And hey, I have 3 loads of cantaloupes. Can you hold them for the weekend or for a week, what have you? And then we're able to accommodate that. So it's been mainly for refrigerated products, also some dry items. And I think there was an occasion too where your warehouse did not have the capacity to receive in an over-the-road delivery. So a truckload was coming, they couldn't take it in. So we were able to, in a pinch, not only store it, but initially receive it in for you and then hold it for later pickup. Yeah,
I
so
gotta
that's
interrupt
logistics.
Bill because I know he's not good at tooting his own horn, as we talked about. And
I'm pushing mute, Kate.
Nope, I'm saying it. Everyone else is gonna hear it. I just think these are the moments that it is really beautiful how relationships develop. And so yes, we purchase a lot of food from Novik Corporation, but they have given us space time and time again that would have cost significant funds for us to be able to use that space. And that has been amazing. And he has even offered to come down and, okay, I'll come open my warehouse so we can make sure you can receive that product. Like, it's those little moments that allowed us to take a full truckload of someone else's donation, but we just couldn't have space for it or we weren't there. And we were able to use that space. So it, like, the flexing that everyone's doing is just amazing. All right, now I'll let you continue. Sorry.
Yeah. All right, let me get back to my prepared remarks.
Yes.
So you mentioned some about the sourcing, and I wanted to also mention, so, you know, our past experience has always been, we've been a donor, we've donated product. Our Novik Urban Farm has been able to donate fresh produce, I think at least the last summer or two, which has been really great. And you mentioned this in terms of sourcing. And this is something I think, Milani, you had mentioned in your opening remarks. The supply chain in our world just, it experienced tremendous flux. So early on in the pandemic, really right at the beginning, when products were needed, what I believe was found was that the standard hunger relief supply chain, it could not support the demand. That was probably, well, I think that you also had stated that, or Kate or Milani had said, your former annual food purchase budget is now your monthly. Multiply that across the country. Anywho, what we were able to do early on was to leverage our vendor relationships. And I think because we were coming from another angle to the manufacturers, from the food service angle, we were able to access product that was greatly needed early on. And so that was definitely an opportunity that we were able to take advantage of and get that product in from the manufacturers. So that was good. And that continues.
So what I kind of have heard across the board is it's really talking about not only thinking and working together differently, but leveraging your relationships, your resources, your expertise to bring it together to make the whole more agile and more effective in serving the community than any one of us could be separately, which is amazing. I'd like to open it up to the audience to put any questions that you've got for the panel, for any one panelist in the chat. But to start with, I've got a couple of questions, and since I'm the moderator, I get to go first. So knowing that, that we've all had to change how we work, do any of you have any examples of what you'd like to hang on to in the future, a change that you don't want to let go of? And conversely, anything that you don't necessarily want to go back to? Oh, if somebody doesn't raise a hand, I'm going to call on you.
I can add my 2 cents there. Yeah, I think, as I said, COVID has shed a light on a lot of gaps in our society that have existed for a long time. So I think for me, and as an organization, as partners, it's one thing I hope that all of our partners and leaders across the space continue to hold on to is that it's not enough to just want to do good or notice gaps. We really have to, a lot of the people on this call and ourselves, everybody has a responsibility to look at the gaps in our society through a critical lens and do something about it. And I say that because, I was a recipient of some of these programs growing up. So I think it's so important to realize that we can break these cycles when we work together. So I guess the new normal that's my hope, is that this shock in our society continues to be kind of a wake-up call so that we can continue to stay engaged and find these deeper solutions that truly do meet people where they are and not just impose a solution that fits our own kind of check boxes. So I think a lot of the partnerships that everyone is talking about today, it's incredible examples of that. So I hope we continue to do that.
Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else have any comments along those lines?
I'd like Jane to go next.
Okay, I'll go next. And I'm going to pass it to you, Bill. I think that was so beautifully said. What resonated with me is, what is the role and responsibility of each and every one of us, of for-profits, of nonprofits? If we all came together, just imagine the problems that we could solve. One example I shared with the group and Kate, that I'm hoping it's okay I share it because it's not necessarily food rescue, but I think it's interesting and an example of using our knowledge and expertise to help with a problem that our nation is facing. So one of the things that you may have heard in some news is that we are actually leveraging our Trier lab. Think of it as like our innovation or think tank arm of our company. And we've been providing in the state of Washington to create a more efficient model to support health officials to get vaccines into arms of people. So you think about Starbucks serves 100 million customers a week in 30,000 stores around the world. We kind of know a thing or two about efficiencies and operational expertise. And so like it wasn't that much of a leap for us to say, okay, well, we're trying to get vaccination in arms of many millions of people. How can Starbucks offer our expertise to be useful in finding ways to move people more effectively through vaccination sites? Similar to hopefully many of you as customers move quickly through a Starbucks store waiting for your favorite coffee beverage. And it just made me so proud that we raised our hand and said, let us help. And maybe someday that could be something that is spread beyond Washington. So I just wanted to share that as an example.
That is amazing. And I do believe she was passing it to you next, Bill.
Next time I want to go first because I'm still wiping the tear from my eye from Mega's comments. Don't do that to me again, please. I'll tell you, I'll give you a personal takeaway and then I'll tell you in terms of business. You know, I from early on, I felt it was important to recognize, and I was kind of amazed at just the bad times going on. No one knows what's happening, and just the beauty in people and how people step up. And of course, those involved in the organization in Philabundance and like organizations and those on this call who care about this, but there were people who had never even been to a food bank, and you saw people stepping up, and I just thought that was a beautiful thing. And I'd say that from a perspective of what to keep, what you know, to avoid, I'd say an open mind and be open to the possibilities, be open to opportunities. You know, I'd say that's something that was a big takeaway. And I liked less traffic, but I don't think that that was worthwhile for the trade. But other than that, no, there were a lot of people that stepped up, which was really nice to see in our community. Yeah.
I'll add something quick, hopefully. I agree with what everyone's saying. I think just the air or the ability to just say, like, we'll try it. We're not really sure if it's going to work. I think Philabundance, you know, it's been hard as, you know, this stalwart in our community. You feel a lot of responsibility and you don't want to endanger people who depend on you for these services and access to food. And so we're cautious a lot of times about how we make moves and how we change things. And I think during the pandemic, we just learned a lot about how we just need to try, and we're going to keep doing it. I mean, the Farmers to Families food box program, internally, it's it's become the thing of like a headache and a half that we all talk about. But when the internal team first looked at that program, we said, okay, we're going to set a goal for ourselves. This is a little scary, but we'll do 4 million pounds of food through the program. And then it was handed to me and my team, and we're like, okay, I know nothing about government programs. I don't know how to do these. Let's figure this out. To date, I think we're at 13.5 million pounds of food through that program. So we've had to figure out a lot of things along the way. Have I said we had to figure out a lot of things? It was tough, but I'm so proud of everyone. And my team has done the same thing of just stepping up, trying to figure out, okay, sure, I'll take it on, I'll try it. So.
Yeah, I can second that in having been with Philabundance for a long time. And I'm sure all organizations are this way. It's, you know, when there's a lot of process and procedures to what you do, sometimes change takes a long time. And unfortunately, something like a pandemic is big enough that, you know, whether it's the government lifting their restrictions or our ability to be more nimble, you get to the point where you just need to get food to the community. and you can let go of some of the process, and some of the things that came down to Philabundance, we were able to let go of and just get the food out. And the ability to be more innovative and more nimble during that time, it has been amazing. For everybody else on the call of our partners here, can you talk a little bit about why you've chosen to work with Philabundance, or what you look for in a nonprofit organization that you choose to share your resources with? Jane, I'm going to start with you. I'm just going to, I'm going to do it.
I don't know, but Bill said he didn't want to go last anymore. But I will start. I would say, kind of all joking aside, but kind of Kate hit on it. We are looking, because you can imagine the complexities of something at our scale. It's just not so easy, because it's not scaling something at a 1 store level. We're scaling something at a almost 10,000 store level. And we are always looking for partners that are willing to say, let's try. Maybe you won't get it right first up, but the willingness to like go in it together with a little bit of blind faith, but just trust that we're in it together. Because I have to share, it wasn't an easy road to get our food share program to scale with Philabundance, at no one's fault. It's just a beast of a program. And I will say the only reason we got there was because we were both so willing to like make it, we were willing it to happen. And, there were twists and turns and bumps and whatnot, but at the root of it, I think we always believed that we're going to get there, because we were willing to compromise. We were willing to take the turns together. And you don't always get that from partners on both sides. And so I would say that is the only reason why this has been successful, because of the trust and the commitment that we will get there together.
Thank you. Trust and commitment, those are not necessarily easy to come by, but they make all the difference in the world. Mm-hmm. Bill, what does that make you think of?
Trust and commitment. Melanie, could you restate the initial question?
Yeah, so the question really was, of all the entities in the Philadelphia area that Novik Corporation could partner with, why do you choose Philabundance, or why do you choose the partners that you choose?
That's an easy one. Well, first of all, Philabundance is the preeminent hunger relief organization in our community, a leader. And I think that partnership has roads that go both ways, and it's truly, it's a true partnership. One of the key elements to our past summer, I didn't even mention in my earlier remarks, was the Farmers to Family program that as an organization Novik participated in, and we were awarded several contracts. That was through direct partnership with Philabundance, and that was an example of Philabundance helping my company to help the community. So truly a two-way street, and that was tremendous. So you mentioned the 4 million pounds, Kate. I was calculating the truckloads that we had done during those several months, and I think we may have hit a close, maybe half. But yeah, so that's why, Melanie. Easy answer.
Thank you. Mega, trust and commitment. I know we, as one of the ones that was at the table with you in the beginning, we knew that we wanted to work together, but it was a bit of a road to figure out how to best do that. And now it's just blossoming. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think that's, for me, it's a testament to kind of that willingness, the trust and commitment, because at the end of the day, we're all people. There are organizations and processes and contracts and all of that. But if people aren't willing to come to the table and have those hard conversations and figure out new ways of solving old problems, if people aren't coming there with their full kind of motivation, their full heart, it's not going to happen. So that key ingredient initially was needed. And I think that everybody, the whole staff, the heart was there, and we all kind of struggled through those months, years of trial and error and figuring out what happened. And I think that's a testament to Philabundance in continuing to stick with that even in uncertain moments, and continuing to say, hey, that belief that we're going to get there, we just don't know the how, but we're going to come to the table and meet you here every time to figure it out. And I think that that commitment is, again, it kind of goes back to what all of us together as a society need to be doing, is coming back to the table, even if it's frustrating or long or figuring out new things. It's coming back.
Because it is going to be frustrating, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it is.
Exactly. These are big problems. If they were easy to solve, it would already be done. So it's complex. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of layers. So untangling that together with people who care at the end of the day is what it's all about. So really happy and grateful for that.
Thank you. I see lots of comments coming in from our audience saying that working together, they're looking for agencies that are flexible and committed and striving every day to reach out and meet the needs of the community, really doing whatever we need to do to meet our shared end goal, which is amazing. I want to ask one last question, and that is, we've talked a little bit about the increased needs. So I know across the food bank network, we're seeing a 50, sometimes 60% increase in people that need help with food. And almost the more alarming number is that 40% of the people now asking for help with food weren't asking for help over a year ago. So they are new to the supplemental food system. And this challenge isn't going away anytime soon. You know, even when the pandemic is gone, the unemployment crisis is going to be with us for a while. The reverberation of the last year is going to be here for a while. How do you and your organizations help share what you've learned and what has worked from these partnerships with others, so that others can have successful partnerships? Because that is what it's going to take to really increase service to all of our communities. Is there a way that you share what's worked with other entities or other people? And Mega, this time I'm going to start with you.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think that has been a continuous evolution, especially in this past year, is when we get feedback from food recipients, because we're delivering to the home. It's higher touch than the typical meal service solution. So when we get that feedback, we always try to roll that out and make sure that we're continuing to improve the service, the distribution, the timing, all of it. So I think for us, it's as we think about solutions going forward, as we're thinking about improvements on the app, on the technology, and what role does that play, high-tech solutions, low-tech solutions, because we also work in the digital divide. So there's a lot of consideration. So for us, we do a lot of user testing to not make assumptions. There's an entire kind of thinking around that piece of it, is before we assume what the solution is, or even just tiny little process improvements, we try to test it first, and then we'll share that with our partners to make sure that when they want distribution solutions or B2C solutions directly to the end recipient, that it's done in a thoughtful way, and we're not just throwing food at people, but that it's done with dignity and it's done in a way that really makes sense to just the overall model. So that's a way that it's kind of like a full feedback loop, I guess I would call it.
Thank you. So we have about a minute left. Are there any parting shots that anybody would like to say before I close this out and hand it back to Lori?
Yeah, I saw a question in the chat about naming one thing Philabundance could do to improve. And I will say that had I not participated in several calls over the last couple months on asking how could we do better with this area, or what would you suggest here, or questions along that nature, I would have answered that question and said they could ask how they could do things better. But the experience I've had just from fly on the wall, here's an organization that is actively looking to make improvements, actively looking to innovate. And I quite frankly, I think it's very impressive. So that didn't answer the question, but it would have had I not participated.
Thank you.
I mean, it still works. We are trying to do that. And I would also say we need to, so from my side, as someone who is in Philabundance, we need to keep thanking partners like you all more and raising up all of these different examples. And also then that helps promote non-traditional ways that other people can get involved with us and how we can all partner and work together, thought partners, logistics partners, warehousing, all these different things that we can just all do together.
Perfectly said. Couldn't have said it better myself. So with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Lori to bring us home.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Milani, for moderating. I always learn when you're speaking, even when you're asking questions. So thank you. And thank you to our incredible partners, Jane, Bill, Mega. I'm so appreciative of the spirit in which you bring, the spirit in which you do this work, and your willingness to partner, that we are developing trust, and that we're doing this for the people we serve. And it's clear through this discussion we're putting them first. And thank you, Kate, for your leadership and being willing to take risks over the last year and take on new programs. And I just want to highlight what Bill referenced in his last response. We are at Philabundance constantly seeking input and feedback. We actually are right now in the midst of a strategic planning process. But part of what Bill was referencing is we have, as you can imagine, a board, and we have committees, and we have a food advisory council. So we are always connecting with experts in a variety of ways to improve on our work. And some of them I know are on this call. This is actually going to be, this is our last virtual town hall. I started off the call saying we're 1 year into the pandemic. We're looking at what's next, and we know that while we have a vaccine, there's no vaccine against hunger, and so we know that we'll be doing this work for the coming years. And we'll be doing this work, as Jane mentioned, not just to feed the line, but also shorten the line, and really looking to partner. We are, though, sunsetting this kind of venue, this way that we'll get together through these virtual town halls. You will be hearing from us about other ways that we can continue to stay connected. As always, we welcome your feedback and input. What kinds of questions do you have? What would you like to learn about our work? Which partners would you like to learn from? And so we encourage you to reach back out to us with that. Since it's our last, I do want to take a moment to thank the many of you who joined us, not just today, but who joined us over the course of the year. There are lots of familiar names I saw that I know have been coming consistently. And so thank you for taking your time out during these busy times to talk with us. I want to acknowledge that we do have some volunteers, other staff members, board members, funders that are on, but I especially want to call out a board member, long-term board member, and our founder, Pamela Rainey Lawler, who's on. And I think for everyone I've been on, Pam, I think you have been. So it's great to see someone who created something, and we still are doing right by her. She's still, so that's good. That's great to know that she still is very connected to our work. And I want to bring up, if this big step and repeat wasn't behind me, what you'd see on the wall behind me here in Galloway, not that far from where Bill's office is, are our values. And one of our values is collaboration. We can't do it alone. And that is really striking for me. I think answers one of the questions that you answered, Milani. One of the differences about COVID, I think, is that the challenges were so big, so large, that even if we didn't believe in this before, we had to believe in it now. And that's definitely what we heard about, how we could not do this alone. And so really getting partners to come together to address problems and bring each of what we can, put our egos aside, build trust, And so definitely want to highlight collaboration because that's definitely what we heard from today. And as I often do, I want to leave by thanking you all and just express our gratitude to everybody who's watching and listening, everybody who participated today. It's because of you we're able to serve people who most need it in our communities. Thank you.